Good evening. So just waiting for people to log in. So we'll just wait for another minute or so. Till then, let's get a little kind of getting used to how things work here. So thanks, first of all, coming on a nice Friday evening when you could have been uh, anywhere else. So that tells me that you're very motivated for the GMAT. Okay, so that's good news, right? So why don't you guys tell me which city you are from? So let's kind of understand how the chat window works. So if you could just tell me, where are you from? So Bangalore, Chennai, Mumbai, Noida, Pune, Mumbai, Dharamsala, Gaurav, that's a pretty cool place to log in from. Hyderabad, Gurgaon, Goa, that's also a equally good place. Chennai, Bangalore, yeah, Ranjitali, I think it's Bathinda, Mumbai, Darjeeling, Mangalore, and more Bangalore. Pooja from Belgaum. Nice to see. Non-metros, Kolkata, Bangalore. So I actually, I grew up a short period of my life. I was in Kolkata. So I moved all over the place. So nice, good to see that. So we'll just wait for maybe another minute. Mumbai, yeah, so Mumbai is probably one of those metros where I think Mumbai, NCR, Delhi, and perhaps Bangalore could be the top three cities where most people take the GMAT, right? So when I see a Mangalore, when I see a Belgaum, when I see a Bathinda, it's really nice to see people from other places coming in and logging in. So let me just probably get started with the basics of today's session. Let me just kind of walk you through what we will be doing, and post that. Cool. So let me get started. Okay. So welcome. Good evening, everyone. And what we will do is we'll just go through some basics, some ground rules, so that all of us are on the same page. So let's make sure that we follow the rules. First rule, please ask me questions. If you have a specific question, there is a Q&A box. So please ask me the question in the Q&A box and not on the chat window. I will be going through the Q&A box. I might not be able to follow the messages on the chat window. On the chat, you can just chat whatever you want. You can type in whatever you want, and if it's just more of a way to interact. But if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A box. All right. So that's the first thing, and please be a little patient. And when you also put it in the Q&A box, make sure. Is there a lot of breaks in the voice? I just wanted to check with others. Okay, so, well, you know what? That's a great way to actually introduce my second point. So the first point, put it in the Q&A window. The second point is, please go ahead, and if you feel that there is a problem, I would imagine that everyone else has a problem. So if one of you has a problem and others are able to hear, the problem is perhaps at your end. So my suggestion would be log out and log in back. I don't know, like maybe you, it's just that one of those things you can just check your speed. And I don't know, many of you probably use, a different tool, but here is a cool tool to use. It's called fast.com. And this is from Netflix. So it makes so much sense for Netflix to make a site which measures the speed of your internet, right? So they have created a very simple site, and it kind of gives you the speed, the download speed. It does not give you latency, does not give you ping, does not give you anything. It just quickly tells you whether your speed is okay. All right. So just make sure that you check your speed as well. All right. Cool. Now that we are done with the basics, let's get into a couple of other things. What is the agenda for the day? So I just wanted to make sure that all of us are on the same page. Let me just go ahead and just give me a second. Let me just post a question over here. Just hold on, okay? So I know that. All right, so let me just type in a poll over here, and then I could probably. All right, so let me just get back to where we were. Okay, so all of you are able to see the screen? Good. So as I was saying, yeah, Samarth, don't worry. We just I just took a small minute to, set up some polls. So I just wanted to understand what is your GMAT experience, so to speak. So I just wanted to understand that. So let me launch it. So just two questions I had for you guys. Because the reason I'm asking the first question is, regarding your GMAT experience is also because this session, and I'm not trying to scare you guys, okay? So even if you're beginner, don't worry. I will make sure that I explain it to you in a way that makes sense to you. But I would imagine that people have already taken the GMAT. So I think there are about, a good amount of today's audience have taken the GMAT. So if you have taken the GMAT, whatever I'm going to say will make perfect sense to you. Okay, I don't even need to explain this. People who have been preparing for some time, like maybe a month or so, you will probably also understand what I'm saying. People who have just begun, I think there are about 20 odd people in today's session who have just begun. Whatever I'm going to say, try to understand, try to see if you can relate to anything else that you have done. But really, this is a slightly advanced session. Not so much in the terms of the concepts that I'm going to cover, but more in terms of the depth at which we're going to go. Because I'm not kidding, okay? But today we're going to get into the internals of how your brain works, okay? So I'm going to look at how your brain would react when you're taking the test, correct? And truth be told, not many, there aren't any books that are talking about it. There aren't many blogs that are written on this, not many videos you can find online. So this is one of those things that nobody seems to talk about, right? If you ask any GMAT test prep institute, they say, oh, this is the way you're supposed to solve it. And we just expect that on the day of the test, you end up doing the same thing. But today's session, I'm going to take a different view. I'm not going to take the view of, a GMAT test instructor, but I'm going to take the view of a GMAT test taker. Someone who's seeing GMAT for perhaps, the first time in his life, someone who is taking the GMAT for the first time or the second time, but someone who's a lot less experienced, and we will try to approach it in a more logical way, right? So just stay with me till the end. I'm pretty sure you'll find a lot of value in today's session, right? And as I said, the stuff that I'm going to talk about, and I don't want to sound very boastful saying this, but very few people can talk at the level of depth that we're going to talk today, right? I also saw that few of you are the Crack Verbal classroom students, and there are a bunch of guys from the online program, and then there are students who are not Crack Verbal students yet. Great. So that's all the information that I needed. Let's kind of get in. Before I get in, a quick introduction. I didn't actually introduce myself. My name is Arun, and those of you who know me, I am the founder and CEO of Crack Verbal. And and people ask about GMAT as a test, and how much would you really know about GMAT, right? Like, anybody who does this for a living, how long would it take to figure out what GMAT is, right? Maybe a month, maybe a few months, maybe a year. So you could pretty much question that, hey, Arun, 12 years of your life, if you've been teaching a test, then what is it that you know about the test that you think is different? Well, to be honest, what happens is after the first level, like initially when you know about the test, what is it that you know? You know there are 41 questions in verbal, 37 questions in quant, 75 minutes each, blah, blah, blah. You have AWIR, all of that. But, the more you learn about the test, the more you think about the test, I think you start understanding the nuance of the test, right? There are these subtle things about GMAT that really, it's remarkable. And people sometimes ask me, Arun, why do I need to learn GMAT, right? Why do I need to learn verbal, right? What is the use? Would it ever be used in life? And my response, and and this is again based on the fact that I was a software engineer, and I'm not sure how many of you actually have done coding in your life. So in the chat window, you can probably type out over here, okay? Which is, you can just go ahead and say, anybody use a chat? Yeah, Ankit is a chat. Okay, so we have a computer science student. So I was a software engineer for about 4 or 5 years of my life. I really sucked at coding, okay? I was a terrible programmer. And mind you, I was not a bad programmer. Okay, a bad programmer can survive. I was a terrible programmer. Okay, and within about 4 or 5 years, you know what happens to terrible programmers? A terrible programmer, okay, becomes a project manager, right? So people looked at me and said, hey, this guy can't code, but seems to be able to speak. Perhaps can write good emails. So why don't we make him a project manager? So fortunately, for the next 6 years that I was in IT, I was a project manager. And, the interesting thing is when I relate to what GMAT is to corporate life, so anybody who has been in a corporate life, correct? Think about it. When you do an MBA and after your MBA, whatever career path you choose, right? There are some things that you have to do, okay? Irrespective of, be it consulting, be it investment banking, be it product management, the first thing that you're supposed to do is you're supposed to read a lot, okay? So anybody who's wanting to do an MBA and doesn't like reading stuff, new stuff, collecting data, you're in for a tough time, because even at B school and life beyond, you would be reading a lot of stuff. And when you read a lot of stuff, you're not expected to come back and just spit out whatever you have read. What you're expected to do is you're expected to summarize whatever you have read. You're supposed to give a gist of whatever you have read. If you ask me, that is nothing but reading comprehension, correct? So whatever RC skills that you're learning today, trust me, I have students who have come to me 2 years, 3 years later, and they said, you know what, the skimming technique that we learned in class, still I'm using it, okay? Second, once you have this data, you are giving me a summary, but by itself, nobody is going to pay you money, okay, to give a summary of something that is read, that you have read. What we are expecting is the summary that you have made. What are the conjectures that I can draw from it? What are the assumptions that I have made? Will this data impact my argument? Will it help me or hurt me? You have to start thinking along those lines. And when you start thinking along those lines, guess what comes into play? Critical reasoning, right? So critical reasoning is about taking data and making sense out of it. So if you're going to be paid big bucks after MBA, expect you to actually do stuff which is figuring out that data. Now that you have figured out the data, now that you have figured out, oh, I've read it, I've summarized it, I've extrapolated things from it, I'm expected to present it to management, right? Be it in the form of a PPT, or could be a report, or even an email. And when you're writing that, you are expected to use language that is clear and crisp. What is that? That is sentence correction, right? So, what you'll realize is whatever skill sets you're learning as part of GMAT Verbal, these are all skill sets that will be used for the rest of your corporate career. So when you're learning, please don't learn it, have a sense that, this is life skills that I'm learning, which is going to help me in my life, beyond GMAT, right? When you have that kind of a positive outlook towards GMAT, and trust me when I say this, right? When you have a positive outlook towards learning GMAT, you will realize you'll love the process. Nobody has scored a 760 and has come to me and said, I hated the GMAT, right? So you need to love GMAT. Once you start loving GMAT, guess what? GMAT loves you back, right? So GMAT, is going to become easier for you. And from there, life is going to be a lot smoother. Because once you get a great GMAT score, no matter what B School admission committee tells you, trust me, GMAT is a huge factor in your application process. Get me a 760, 770 on the GMAT. I can assure you, not just of admission to a decent ranked school, but also perhaps a good scholarship, right? But that's in front of us. But what do we have right now? Just a quick word about Crack Verbal. I'm pretty sure all of you know. We started in 2006. I was actually working full-time at that point, and I started Crack Verbal more on weekends, Saturday, Sunday. And one thing that has helped us is if you see the list of schools below, right? So we have actually positioned ourselves as a player or as a company which helps the serious GMAT aspirants, right? To be very honest, Crack Verbal is not a great place to come if you want just like a 550 GMAT and you want to go to some place in New Zealand doing hospitality management. Crack Verbal is not the place. We tend to work well with people who are gunning for the best GMAT scores, 700 and above, and wanting to get into as good a B school as possible, right? So that's a bit about us. Just wanted to let you know this month, and in fact the next month, we are going to be starting with MBA Achievers Summit. This time we are doing it in 3 cities. It's going to be in Bangalore, Mumbai, and Delhi. Those are the dates. Bangalore is going to be on the 31st of March. Mumbai, we are doing it on 7th April, which is a Saturday. And then New Delhi, we're going to do it on 8th April. So over here, we're going to have, not just a physical session where we'll be talking about what is it that, you need to get into a top school. But I will also have a lot of, successful students coming in and talking about their experience, because it's very important to hear it from someone who was in your position the same time last year. Correct. And I hope many of you, listening to this webinar today, I just want you to remember that March 16th, 2019, I hope you have an admit in your hand, right? Couple of free resources. I think you might have seen the GMAT online course. In case you have not, got a bunch of free videos. You can take the trial course over there. We got a lot of ebooks on our ebook library. In case you have not seen those, you can probably head over to the ebook library, have a look. Same thing for the videos. We got a lot of strategy videos. In case anyone has seen my videos, you will realize that I deliver value in these videos. So please go ahead and have a look at these videos. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just go ahead and type Crack Verbal. You should be able to find it. All right. So now that we got the basics out of the way, let's kind of deep dive a little into this. Okay. Okay. So first things first, right? Let me understand this. In quant, I have 75 minutes, right? And I have 37 questions, which means I have 121 seconds per question. In verbal, I have 75 minutes again. And this time around, I have 41 questions, which basically gives me a total of 109 seconds, right? So question to you, if a student is solving 10 questions, right? And he scored like the 10 questions Do you think he should solve like 107 seconds, 108 seconds, 110 seconds, 109 seconds, 108 seconds, 111 seconds, 107 seconds? Like that, should he solve all within the 109 second range in order to get the accuracy? Do you think that would be a good way to do it? I have 109 seconds. So should I be targeting 109 seconds for every question? Yes or no? You can type into the chat window. No? Okay, good. So all of you smart, okay? You understand this is not an archery competition, right? Exactly. See, the thing is, correct. So the thing is, the questions that you are able to solve in 30 seconds, you need to be able to solve it in 30 seconds. See, the only way I can get these numbers is if I were to solve a question, right? And in 60 seconds, and then say, "Arey, nee, I need to spend 109 seconds. So the next 49 seconds, what am I doing? I'm waiting," right? Stupid. Same way, same token. Let us say a question takes 2 minutes to solve. Let's say 125 seconds to solve. But just because you have reached 109 seconds, should you just panic and go ahead and mark something in random? Again, not a wise strategy, correct? So what you realize is that, you know, the idea is to understand that the whole concept is to look around having an average, correct? So what you're really doing is you're having an average. What is the average? The average is pretty much the, I think I'm just trying to figure out my writing board, but the whole idea is that you average it, which means some questions you're going to take more time, some questions you're probably going to take less time, right? So whether you take more time or less time, the intent is that we try to, spend approximately that much time for the overall test, correct? Now, how do I manage 75 minutes? Is 75 minutes manageable? Well, if you ask me, 75 minutes is not a number that can be managed. It's just too big a number. You ask me to manage 75 minutes, not possible, right? So the first thing that you have to understand is don't treat the GMAT as a 75-minute test, okay? Instead, what you can do is treat GMAT as a test of 15 minutes. That's all. So what I'm going to do is I have one test of 15 minutes, correct? 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and 60 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to treat it as 5 tests of 15 minutes each. Think of it as 5 mini tests. What I need to do in these 5 mini tests is, in the case of quant, I need to solve on an average 7 questions in each of these buckets. So I solve 7 questions in the first 15 minutes, which means I'm on question number 8 by the end of 15 minutes. I'm on question number 15 by the end of 30 minutes. I'm on question number 22 by the end of 45 minutes. I'm in question number 29 by the time I'm done with the first hour, and then I should hit question number 37. So if you see, there is a delta of about 1 or 2 questions towards the end, but this serves as a very good thumb rule, which means in quant, for every 15 minutes, if you're able to solve 7 questions, so what you do next time you sit to study, don't try to think of it as 75 minutes, okay? Take 7 questions. Keep the timer for 15 minutes, okay? If you're able to manage your time in these 15 minutes, the 7 questions you're able to solve, that means you're going to do well. Obviously, all 7 questions could be of varying difficulty, correct? Which means it's not necessary that you need to solve all the questions. So it's very important that you realize that at some point, if a question is taking a lot of time, you also need to be able to guess, correct? So I'll be explaining how to guess a little later, okay? But I just want you to understand this is what we have to do for quant. What do we do for verbal? Verbal, same thing, but this time in 15 minutes, I have to solve 8 questions. Now let's see. After 15 minutes, you would have solved 8 questions, which means you'll be on question number 9. After 30 minutes, which is another 15 minutes, you should have solved 16 questions, which means you should be on question number 17. After 45 minutes, which is 3 mini tests, correct? You should have solved 24 questions, which means you should be on question number 25. Then you should have done 32 questions, which means you should have been in question number 33. And finally, in the 5th test, you should have done 40, which means, you need to add one more question. So essentially you get to 41, correct? Very important that, when you're practicing, at that point, try to keep this 15 minute as your measure, right? Otherwise, what will happen is you keep practicing for the next 2-3 months. You don't take a full-length test. When you take a full-length test, right, it will come instinctively to you, right? You will start thinking in terms of 15-minute chunks. Breaking it down to smaller chunks, according to me, is a little difficult. I'll tell you why. See, when you're taking the GMAT, you want 100% of your brain to focus on solving that question. You don't want to keep looking at the clock and keep seeing the time tick away, because not only would it produce stress, but it's actually going to waste your mental energy trying to look at the clock. It really doesn't help to look at it every 5 minutes, right? So look at it approximately 15 minutes. Not that you will know exactly when 15 minutes are over, but what it also means is, okay, and this is where a very interesting kind of concept also comes. I don't expect you to solve all 8 questions in the 15 minutes. I don't expect you to solve all 7 questions in quant in those 15 minutes. I'm saying you have to get to question number 9. I'm not saying you have to solve all the 8 questions, which means it is okay for you to guess once in a while before you get till the 75th minute. So let us say, I'm just giving you a hypothetical scenario. Let us say you are at the 45th minute mark, okay? And let us say you are in verbal and you realize that you are on question number 22. Now 22 means you are -3. You should have been on question number 25, but you are on question number 22, which means -3, which means in the next 30 minutes of the test, you have to make up for those 3 questions. Very important. So you can then start thinking, how can I guess? But better than that, don't even get into a scenario of -2, -3. Try to see -1, -2, according to me, is still okay, right? So we don't need to go like clockwork. It's okay. But be conscious. On the GMAT, timing is not about trying to control it, but timing is about being conscious of it. Right? Being conscious of the timing to a large extent will help you save, the stress towards the end of the test. Because see, why I'm telling you this is because usually when students come, they say, oh, question number 35, I realized I have only 5 minutes left. So then I asked them, so the problem was question number 34. He said, no, question number 34 wasn't the problem, but somehow time just seemed to leak. Okay, and this is a very important thing, right? Which is time leak.
It's 8 o'clock.
Many a times on the GMAT, what you'll realize is that time just goes by without us realizing till it's too late. Okay, so it's very important that you kind of manage the questions so that you are left with enough time towards the end, right? So that's really the first point I wanted to say. Any questions? If you do have questions, happy to answer that. I have a question from Vikas. It's not related to the topic that we are doing. It's more about GMAT in general. Vikas, I feel any age an MBA, it's like, one thing that I tell people about doing an MBA is doing an MBA is like getting married. Okay. There is no right age to get married. People get married at 24. People get married at 42, right? So you need to be in the right mind space, right? To understand that, okay, I'm committing to 2 years of my life or 1 year of my life towards an MBA. As long as you're mentally committed, I think, age is just a number. You don't need to worry. I had a question. Do we have negative marks? Here is the deal. You don't need to really worry, okay? Because at the end of the day, you have to solve all 41 questions, right? Now think about it. Now, whether you get the questions right or you get the questions wrong, doesn't matter. We will try to solve it as if we want to get all the questions right. We will try to solve it as if we want to score 800. But the fact remains that we are going to make mistakes, correct? So your question is, are there negative marks? Let me rephrase that question and ask you, making errors will lower your score, correct? Don't think of it as a negative mark, but think making errors will definitely lower my score, right? That's how eventually it works, right? I'm not going to be answering any questions regarding MBA, please. So, I would like you to kind of keep that as a separate topic somewhere else. All right. Jitesh had a question. Is it compulsory to attend each question? Yes, Jitesh. On the GMAT, you have to answer all the questions, right? You cannot see the next question unless and until you have answered the existing one. I know that GRE has something called as mark and review, which means you can leave a question unanswered, go forward and come back. But you need this because on the GMAT, you have what is called as, so I don't know if you have, there is, I'll just give you a link. I think this link will be useful for you. I also have a video on this topic, but I'll just give you the link. So this is a blog that we wrote on the GMAT scoring algorithm. So you could probably have a look at it. It's a good read in case you want to understand the GMAT more. Okay, so I'm going to get back to the questions. So anonymous attendee, what does adaptive mean? I have written a 3,000 word blog on it, so I don't think it's possible to explain, but just think of it this way, okay? Every time GMAT is, so what happens in life is we have this scoring which is based on our overall effort in the exam, right? So if you have 20 questions in the exam, when will the score get computed? After you have finished the 20th question. But what happens on the GMAT, think of it this way, that your score gets computed after each question. So right now, when you start, they say, "Arey, 50% over." Then you answer the first question. They say, "No, yaar, this guy seems to be smarter. He may be 55. Then you answer another one. They say, "Arey, he's maybe 70. Then you answer another one. They say 80. Then you answer a wrong question incorrectly. They'll say, "Arey, 80 nahi hoga, maybe 75. Correct? So what they will do, they will lower it a little. So think of it this way, at every stage, they are constantly gauging whether they have to take you up or down, right? So that's as far as the scoring algorithm and this is concerned. So yeah, scoring all the questions are important. Just one thing, Hari Krishnan, please don't use the Q&A as a chat window. So I would request you to, because see, the more questions you're going to put in the chat window, the tougher it's going to be for me to work. So request you not to, kind of please post on the Q&A window. Can you share your presentation, few points from this webinar with us? And this entire webinar is available to you in the form of a video. So you can go back and look at it. But trust me, if you are right now listening to this webinar, continue till the end. That's how you'll be able to get it out of the way. Otherwise, what will happen? Video pada rahega, nobody really goes back and listens to it, correct? We'll also be uploading it on YouTube in a few days. So in case you are interested to see that, you can do that. But Kamal Kukreja had a question, how to decide whether to guess the question, move ahead. Perfect, Kamal. We are going to get into that, okay? That is the meat of today's session, okay? That is really the meat of it. Amarjeet, how many questions should you answer correctly to? Amar, this is slightly complicated. The blog that I shared with you can possibly throw some more light on it. I've given you some indicative, kind of numbers over there. Okay. So Anish Mukherjee, I'm not looking at your question because it's not in the chat. It's not in the Q&A window. All right. All right. So now let's get on to the next part of what we have. Okay. So I want you to consider a few points. I'm going to go through all of these 5 points and let's try to understand this. Now, one thing that I get from a lot of students is, but Arun, I have heard that the first 10 questions are very important on the GMAT and that my score basically depends on how well I do that. How many of you have heard of it? Type in the chat window. Have you heard of this? That the first 10 questions are important, correct? So I'll tell you the history behind this, okay? Because it's important that you understand a little bit of background to this, okay? The history behind this is what happens is the adaptive algorithm that I just told you about, correct? Where first question they check you, they say you are at a 50%, and then going ahead for every question that you get right, they bump you up to a next level, and for every question that you get wrong, you're taken to a lower level. Think of it this way: this what do you call it? This kind of variation will happen more in the initial part of the test than the later part of the test. So think of it this way. Let us say this is your, let's say, 500 GMAT level. So you start off at 500, then you climb, then you go down, then you climb, then you go down. So after a point, what happens? The variations will be very small. Okay. So I don't know where it went. I'll just write it again. Okay. So yeah. So let's say you start at 500 level, correct? So what happens? The variations initially will be more than after a point. Whether you get a question right or wrong, it doesn't change that much, correct? This is the conventional theory behind the fallacy that the first 10 questions are important. But here is the problem between that, okay, between the fallacy of the first 10 questions. So now just think about it, okay? The first thing that I'm going to ask you is, if you spend more time in the initial 10 questions, will you not run out of time in the next 30 questions? Correct? So you spend more time, but that extra time has to come from someplace, right? So what happens? A lot of people, they get gripped with this fear, correct? So what happens? They say, oh, you know what? This is the most important thing. So I need to spend more time. And the first 10 questions, they end up spending 20, 25 minutes. I've seen a lot of students do that. First 10 questions, 20, 25 minutes they'll spend, and they'll say, Acha, abhi I have reached a level, jahan pe, let's say this is 740 level. Okay? Ab, nothing can happen to me. Now, I'll tell you a very interesting thing about the GMAT algorithm. GMAT algorithm is a kind of, think of it as a self-learning algorithm, which means it is predicting where you are. Now, it has got you to a 740, correct? Now what happens? You run out of time, okay? Now, when you run out of time, the chances are you may get rushed and you start making a lot of mistakes, and that too consecutively. Why? Because you ran out of time. Now you have just 5 minutes, correct? And think about it, right? So, there was a study that was done, and they saw people, okay, if I were to give 2 minutes to solve a question, okay, let us say your accuracy is 80%, correct? Now, what happened is, spending 3 minutes on that question maybe gave a slightly higher accuracy, maybe 85%. But remember that spending less time, because on one question I took 1 minute extra, I have robbed another question of its rightful 1 minute, correct? So instead of giving it 2 minutes, I've actually given it only 1 minute. Now tell me what will happen. Do you think 80% ka 75%? Or do you think something else is going to happen? Here is the beauty of it. Giving it 1 more minute may improve it slightly, but if you give it less time, if you give it just 1 minute, your entire this is going to plummet. Yes. So it may be somewhere around 40%. Okay. So what is happening here is this guy has reached a 740 level, or GMAT thinks that he has reached a 740 level. But now what the algorithm sees is that he's making mistakes. One after the other, he's constantly making mistakes, correct? Or he's making a series of 3 mistakes, 4 mistakes. GMAT says, you know what? There is a problem in the way I assess this guy. It's going to plummet your level. It's going to get you down to a lower level. And at this point also, because you run out of time, see, otherwise this question you could have actually done it if you had more time. but you don't have time. So even an easy question, let's say it's a CR question, reading the stimulus, understanding what it is, going through the answer options, all of it is going to take time. But what happened? Because you gave it so much time, you don't have you don't have time even to solve simpler questions. GMAT is going to directly plummet your scores. Correct? So your scores are going to come crashing down. So even if you get a 740, you could end up with, let's say, a 600. Correct? So maybe it's not that bad. Maybe this is 600 level. Correct? So it's important for you to remember that just spending more time on the first 10 questions, you will have a problem in the last part of the test. And GMAT algorithm will penalize you, will get you down. Correct? So that's the first thing that you need to know. Now, the second thing that I want to kind of talk about, and this is something which probably you'll realize if you're taking a test. Is it even possible for me to know? Everybody says, no, first 10 questions you get it right. How do I know whether the question that I have answered is right or wrong? So this whole advice that people give, to get the first questions right, is with the assumption that the person controls. Today, if I were to give you 10 questions, okay, some random, I'll give you 10 questions. Will you be able to guarantee, will you be able to say, okay, I'm going to put 1 lakh rupees, bet that all the 10 questions I'll solve will be right. And I'm going to give you infinite time. I'm going to take 1 day for it. So you will realize even if you take 1 day, there is no guarantee that you control whether you get the question right or wrong. Correct? Many a times what happens on the GMAT is that tough questions, are, they don't come with a red beacon on top. They are not like some minister ki gaadi ki, it comes and then everybody knows, hey, this guy has come. GMAT questions work by deception. GMAT questions, some of the real tough ones that I've seen, the difference between the right and the wrong answer choice is so fine that, you'll be tempted to pick the wrong answer choice. GMAT knows human psychology. GMAT is going to use it against you. Correct? So get rid of this fallacy that you control the number of questions that you're going to get right. And to be honest, if you are a genius that you can get the first 10 questions right, then you are a bloody genius, get all 41 questions right. No, get an 800 on the test. So ye jo advice hai na ki get the first 10 questions right, I just find it to be foolish, right? People end up spending way too much time and they end up, thinking that they got it right, but in that process, they overanalyze. So a simple question answer is C, but they'll say, oh, let me make sure. Let me read D once more. Let me go back to B. And they kind of, complicate it more than they should. Right? So what I gave you in the previous screen, please use that pacing chart. Correct? Don't get caught into this fallacy of the first 10 questions. Right? Okay. Now here is another thing, very funny thing that happens with our brain. Okay. When you start, and anybody who has taken the test, that's why at the start of the session I said anybody who has taken the test will understand this a little better. See, when you take the test, the first question, you will always feel that I will catch up. So what happens is people spend more time in the initial questions because they always have this mental thing, ki, I'll catch up. I'll see some sentence correction question. No, I'll solve it in 30 seconds or I'll solve it in 40 seconds. So our perception of how much time is left keeps changing as we progress on the GMAT. So when I start, I think, oh, I have 75 minutes. Correct? Then I look at 60 minutes, no problem, I'll figure it out. Then you look at 45 minutes. 45 minutes is enough. Here I'll be able to figure out. I'll catch up. Then 30 minutes, you'll say, I have to catch up, but okay, I think I'll manage. Then it says 15 minutes and you start panicking. Then it says 10 minutes, your brain stops working. Correct? So, we tend to find that gratification when we are solving questions, we find gratification to be in here and now. Correct? So I'm not worried about the test. Abhi, let me focus on solving this question. Even if this question is taking me 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. And that is why people don't guess. People don't guess early enough in the test. My advice to you, guess early enough. Remember, every time you're, there is a proverb, right? Robbing Peter to feed Paul or something, right? So you're robbing the first questions, the later questions, by giving more time to the initial questions. Be aware of it. So next time you take a test, just tell yourself, I do not have 75 minutes. I have only 15 minutes. In this 15 minutes, if it's quant, I have to do 7 questions. If it is verbal, I have to do 8 questions. Correct? So when you remember this, you will be able to manage your time better. Never think 75 minutes. Always think 15 minutes. All right? Point number 2. Okay. Coming to point number 3. All right? So I'll go back to what I said earlier, correct? Which is, if you were to look at the test, right? Is this test something that, so point 1 done, point 2 done. The second thing is, people tend to think that there is a correlation, okay, some sort of a linear correlation between taking the test and the accuracy. Okay, what I mean by that is, the more time that you spend, okay, I want you to think about it, okay, more time that you spend, the higher the probability of me getting the question right. How many of you feel that way? Do you think it's right? You can put it in the chat window. You know what? All of you know this answer, okay? I agree, right? See, what I'm telling is 80%, 2 minutes. I'm saying in 3 minutes, it is 85%. But what I'm saying is that it is not always true. In fact, what you will realize, okay, is exactly, Priyabat actually got this. The fact that I'm spending more time usually means I actually did not understand the question. So what happens if you take time and accuracy, correct? It's not a linear curve. It's actually, it falls down. It plateaus for some point, but after that it falls down. Which means if you're spending more time on a question, it doesn't mean that you have to invest more time, your accuracy is good. There is something about that question that you did not understand, which is why you're spending more time. In fact, I'll give another example. If that is the case, then you should not be able to solve easy questions, no? Easy questions, break this. If I were to say length is 5, breadth is 3, what is the area of rectangle? 15. Now, there is no correlation because I cannot spend more time to improve my accuracy. Either I know it, or let me ask you another question. What is the capital of Mongolia? Now, let us say you don't know the capital of Mongolia, right? I can give you forever, but you would still not know what the answer is. Okay, you don't get to Google, okay, on the GMAT. But you got the point, right? So somewhere I just feel that people take more time thinking that they are actually improving their chances, whereas I can prove it to you that spending more time, you are actually weakening your chances. In fact, that's a good question for you to guess and move on, right? So use your judgment. I'm not saying that for every question, the moment you get stuck, you panic and start guessing. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that at some point you have to understand that just because spending more time, your accuracy is not going to go up. Okay. Now, fourth is actually a concept in economics that I'm bringing into the GMAT scenario. So anybody who was coming from a commerce background, or it's actually not even a commerce or a this thing, it's actually more of a general knowledge thing. It's called sunk cost bias. What happens in sunk cost bias is, so I'll give an example, right? My mom, okay, I'm pretty sure most of you can relate to mothers, okay, who do this kind of thinking. So for my mom, right, if there is something that I want to throw away, okay, the other day I had an iPod, okay. Now, who the hell listens to an iPod anymore, right? So, she said, why are you throwing this iPod? I said, well, I'm throwing it because I'm going to use it. She said, no, but you remember you had got this from the US. I said, I got it in 2006, 12 years ago, okay. She said, no, ek kaam karte hain, you reset the data, I will sell it on OLX. Now, I asked her, I said, you forget that. If this iPod is available on OLX, How much will you buy it for? So she said, no, I won't buy it for anything. Why would I buy this? I said, exactly the point. Because we have spent money buying it, okay? It could be an old t-shirt that you have. All of us have this, right? Or it could also be, I'll give you another scenario. Have you ever gone to a movie, okay? By interval, you have realized it's a waste. It's a crap movie. But you thought, yaar, abhi itna dur aa gaya, I bought the popcorn, I'm sitting here, let me anyways watch the rest of the movie. What you're doing is suffering from sunk cost bias. Because you have taken the effort and you have come to the movie, though the movie is lousy, you want to endure that movie just because your commitment is so high. Right? It is very easy for you to pull off when your sunk cost is not there. Right? Now you're thinking, yaar, itna paisa chala gaya to bhi, let me just do it. Same thing on the GMAT. What happens is I start a question, all right? I spend 1.5 minutes, and I realize at the end of 1.5 minutes, and trust me, if you have solved GMAT questions, you probably understand this. You realize that, hey, it's not going anywhere. Chances are I'm not going to be able to get this question right. But guess what? Because you invested 90 seconds, you know what happens? Sunk cost bias kicks in. So now what you're going to do is you're going to put in more time trying to salvage the 90 seconds that you already spent. So instead of cutting your losses, instead of going ahead and saying, you know what, screw this, let me just mark an answer and move on, what you tend to do, 90 seconds spent kar liya, abhi let me spend 1 more minute and try to get the answer. Again, a problem that you have to be aware of, you have to be conscious of. Again, remember, whatever I'm telling you, I'm not telling you some blanket rule. I'm not telling you follow this or do this or do that. I'm telling you, be conscious of this, be aware of it. Okay? Last one is the fight or flight syndrome. Okay, most of you might have heard this, which is at some point on the GMAT, okay, I keep trying, and then at some point I realize that I'm not going to be able to do it, and then I start blindly guessing, right? This is the problem. See, if I have 41 questions, correct, I know students who would have done this. In, let's say, 26 questions, okay, they will go ahead and, so in 26 questions, what they will do is they will spend 2+ minutes trying to solve it. And suddenly, last 15 questions, when they realize they don't have time, what do? They start blindly marking C for the next 5 questions. Or still worse, I've had people who have actually, guessed an entire RC passage. Hey, you know what? I run out of time every time. So my next strategy is the 4th RC passage. I will just go ahead and guess all the questions. Terrible strategy. Okay, don't even think of doing that, because as I told you earlier, GMAT has already gotten you to a level, correct? So you have to understand that you cannot be in this constant flight or fight syndrome, right? In one point you are giving it more time, and then on another point to make up, you're just kind of blindly guessing 3 or 4 questions because the adaptive algorithm kicks in, and what does it do? It plummets your score, right? You need to be balanced. You need to understand, okay, I need to keep GMAT in my control. How do you keep it in control? What did I say in the previous slide? 15 minutes, 5 tests. Each 15 minutes, quant solve 7 questions, verbal solve 8 questions. Consistently, if you are able to do that in your practice on the test, don't get caught up into the way your brain is working. You're conscious of the time you're spending, you will do well. Okay, so the crux or the meat of what I have to say, I've said it. People who have not taken a full-length test or who have not reached that point, whatever I said, I don't know how much sense it made to you, but trust me, listen to this video after you've taken a test. Because I really feel taking a test will really give you the perspective. Because when we are sitting at home solving questions, the stress is not there. Remember that GMAT, the way your brain works under stress is very different than the way your brain works when it is not under stress. When you're aram se cool, relaxed, how many of you have done that, right? Cool, relaxed, AC is going on full blast. You just pick up OG, you think, "Arey, let me solve a reading comprehension passage today." And you look up a reading comprehension passage, you're able to understand it, you map it very well, you look at the questions, it seems very clear. The answer options are B, C, D, A, you mark all of it, you look at the answer, all four right. Unfortunately, your brain is not going to work the same way when on the GMAT. Okay, you're going to be seeing that same passage when it's the fourth passage when you're under stress. So you need to be able to manage it well, which is why it's important not to get stuck in the fight or flight syndrome. Right? Excellent. So let me just now look at the questions that we have. Ankit asked, do questions keep getting tougher if you answer correctly? Theoretically, yes. Okay. Theoretically, yes. I'll tell you why. Eventually, GMAT has to give you a quant 51, a verbal 51. Okay. And it also is going to give you 800 on the GMAT. Right. So if you get all the questions right, you get quant 51, verbal 51, you get 800 on the GMAT. How do you think a verbal 51 level question is going to be? Because if they have to give you a verbal 51, they have to make you solve a verbal 51 level question, right? You got the answer, it is going to be tough, right? So yes, I would say it is going to get tougher if you answer questions correctly. Anish Mukherjee had this question, if you answer questions correctly, the ones following will get tougher. How can we stick to the 15-minute? We have to keep guessing. No, Anish, here is the deal. Difficulty level kicks in the first 6-7 questions. Okay, so it is not that progressively it is going to get tougher. Ki 41 jo hai, wo to matlab it's going to be from a different planet. It's not like that. Your tougher level will start in question number 6 and 7. You don't even need to wait till question number this. And plus the first few questions, in fact, I'm building in a buffer because you are actually going to start the test. There will be a little bit of inertia. All of you understand what is inertia, right? This is the feeling that, when I'm looking at a question, first verbal question, my brain is a little slow and it's not picking up the tempo. So usually, initially, you will be a little slow because of that, correct? That is why I'm actually saying, even if it's like an easier level question, it's okay, take 15 minutes, correct? But here is the deal, on the GMAT, no matter how tough the questions are, what is happening, Anish, is you did not understand question number 3. So read point number 3, correlation between accuracy and time spent, correct? So you are assuming that more time will give me higher accuracy. Abhinash, pressure to meet 15-minute target may result on reduced accuracy. Okay, Abhinash, I'm going to give you an answer to that one. Okay, so how do I reduce stress on the GMAT? Okay, pretty much that's your question, right? So let me. Yeah. All right. So, okay. So here is one more thing that I don't know how many of you are aware, but GMAT, okay, I'll take quant and then I'll take verbal, okay? So I'm going to take quant and verbal. Sorry, I think the, let me just go ahead and clear this and type it again. Okay, let me just type this once more. So there is quant and there is verbal. Okay. All right. So this is something that you probably don't know, but in quant, out of the 37, we have 37 questions, correct? And in verbal, we have 41 questions. total we have 78 questions, correct? Can you tell me, out of these 78 questions, I don't know if you know this, but do you know that there are many dummy questions? These are dummy questions as in questions that don't go towards your final 3-digit GMAT score. And any guesses how many dummy questions you're going to get? Any idea? Good. You are going to get, okay, hold your breath. You are going to get a total of 9 questions in quant and a whopping 11 questions in verbal, which will be dummy questions. Dummy questions means these are questions that don't go towards your final 3-digit GMAT score. And the beauty is, we also know, okay, how many will appear in each of these sections, okay? So if I were to split your test into 4 sections, okay? So let us say question number 0, question number 37. So let me split it this way. 9, 9, 9, and 10. So basically the first 9 questions, the next 9 questions, the next 9 questions, and the last 10 questions, okay? The way it's going to be distributed is you're going to have 2, 2, 2, and 3 questions, all of which will be dummy questions, will not go towards your final 3-digit GMAT score. So in the first 9 questions, 100%, 2 questions will not go towards your GMAT score. Next 9 questions, 2 questions are dummy questions. Which ones we don't know. Uske baad ke 9 questions, 2 of them dummy. Last 10, 3 of them dummy. Now let's look at verbal. How does it work in verbal? Verbal, you have splits of 10, 10, 10, and 11. Okay? In the first 10 questions, 2 questions dummy. Next 10 questions, 3 questions dummy. Next 10 questions, 3 questions dummy. Last 11 questions, 3 questions dummy. Okay? So all of these are dummy questions, fake questions, which don't go towards your final GMAT score. So at any given point, going back to the question that I was trying to answer, which is whenever you feel stress, okay, take a deep breath. And this is what I tell my students in the classroom also, in case you have attended my classes. I call it the GMD technique. Okay, it's a very powerful technique, the GMD technique. The GMD technique basically says, take a deep breath, say Jai Mata Di, mark an answer, and move on. Okay, and just tell yourself, maybe it was an experimental question, right? That's the only way you're going to actually ease the stress on the GMAT, okay? Because GMAT is one such thing where, stress is going to get the better of you. So it's very important that you kind of learn how to manage stress on the GMAT, okay? All right, so let me just now, why do they give dummy questions? Well, the reason they give you dummy questions is this is basically called, it's not dummy actually. GMAT uses these questions. So GMAT actually takes these questions and it looks at whether this question can be used in the future tests, correct? So it's just testing out the questions. Again, my blog that I gave you on the scoring algorithm could probably help you answer that. So Abhinash Bohidar, I hope that was a little helpful to help handle the pressure. Vikas, not subject of this, so I'm not going to be answering it. Try to get as high a GMAT score. Vikas, I also see you're starting your prep now, so best to get in touch with someone at Track Verbal. We can schedule a personal session with you, walk you through all your doubts and confusion, right? Don't worry, all of this recording is available, so no need for the PPT. Do they consider work experience? I'm not going to be answering questions not related to today's session, so please, Samart, everyone else, kind of please mail it to the person that you're talking to at Crack Verbal, okay? we'll be more than glad, whether it's Monica, whether it's Swati, Pratik, Likesh, whoever else you're talking to, please ask them and they will help you. Difficulty level of GMAT questions equivalent to CAT of 98, 2008. Because the difference between CAT and GMAT is CAT, the same set of questions will appear for everyone. In GMAT, a person who's scoring a 770 will see questions that probably most people will never see, correct? So it's not like the first set of questions, this. And again, as I said, you probably need to read that blog, you know. So Vikas, terrible strategy. The moment you answer 27 questions, don't want to attempt further, your scores will plummet. How do test questions affect your scores? Pranja, you don't need to worry. Test questions will not affect your GMAT scores. As verbal is a little exhaustive, should we select it at the first to attempt? Can we leave IR? Samarth, that is what my suggestion would be. Start off with verbal or with quant. I would not really start with IR or AWA. Any suggestions for Avinash, not the forum to ask? Shashank Jha has this question, what if Q51, V51, and what is required Q51 or Q... I didn't get the question, Shashank, but the split of quant and verbal, the particular link that I shared, please look at the chat window, go to that link will answer the question. Priya Brat, the 5 questions are left to do in 2 minutes. Should we guess all or leave them unattempted? There is no way you can leave it unattempted. So just go ahead and blankly guess it, right? So just go blindly guess it. At least you have a 20% probability of getting it right. If you leave it unattempted, there is a 100% probability of you getting it right. Or rather, 100% probability of you getting it wrong. Why would you do that? Correct? 5 answer option, hai 1 answer option is 20% probability. Correct? So I would not ever leave questions unattempted. Jignesh, very complex question. I don't think I'll be able to answer it in simple ways. Your timing is not on the last 2 RCs. I see a fault in the question itself. You cannot improve timing in the last 2 RCs. Your timing has to be consistent throughout. What happens when we make mistakes in the initial part, we try to catch up for it later on, correct? So that's something that we cannot. Okay. So I'm just going to go through, I'm just going to not answer questions. So some of the questions I think are just, probably questions that are more for entertainment value. So, okay, so I'm not going to answer those questions. Okay, so Bharti had a question. What if initial questions are wrong and later we are doing right? Obviously, see, it depends on how many questions you're getting wrong in the first place, right? See, let me make it very clear. If you are gunning for a 700 plus, okay, you are looking at least a quant 49 and you're looking at a verbal of 36 and above, correct? If you're looking at a verbal of 36 and above, verbal 36 is the 80th percentile. 80th percentile is not like CAT. CAT, you're competing with people who are all Indians, correct? Who studied in similar schools, who probably don't have English as their first language. But when you're looking at the GMAT and you're saying a 80th percentile in verbal, you're competing against the population of the United States, right? They are the people taking the GMAT. So I would say you cannot afford making mistakes. So, if you end up making mistakes in the initial part or in the end part, it's equally bad, correct? Yes, Praja, the spacing is correct. That is because we reverse engineered the ESR, the enhanced score report, and that's where we got it from. Yes, Ria, they can be easy or tough. So I'll be explaining that, Shahnaz, a little later. Do unattempted. So please stop questions at this point. I have to get forward with my presentation, so I would not be able to, go through. So please, at this point, stop your questions. I see the last question from Anish, then I'll get back to the presentation. Unattempted question, Priyabrat, there is no point, leaving it unattempted. And other requests, please don't repeat the question. I see people saying the same question like 3 times, so please don't repeat the question. Should we start preparing Animesh? Don't worry about AWA at this point. You can worry about it later. Worry about quant and verbal at this point. Sheena had this question, should we attend verbal or quant? Which option? I'll take it in a separate webinar, not today. I scored 51.38. desperately want to increase in 2 weeks. Anchit, it's not, see, if I were such a genius ki I can tell you in like 2 minutes ki 38 to 40 kaisa jana hai, then I would really not be in this. I would be sitting on a top of a mountain wearing robes and people would be coming to me. I'd be blessing people. Tatastu. It's not that easy, right? To actually give an answer ki next 2 weeks, what will I do? Internalize. Whenever you are stuck any place on the GMAT, GMAT is a tough test for people because they tend to externalize the problem. Internalize the problem. The answer is usually within you. You need to figure it out. Correct? And Anish had this, do questions in quant different weightages. Please look up the blog. You should be able to have questions over there. Okay, so I won't be taking any more questions for the session. Sorry about it because we have about 20 minutes left and I still have some things to cover. So let's go ahead and take the next one. All right, what to do when you're stuck? Okay, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you have this problem that you start solving a question and somewhere you're not able to make progress. Your brain seems to be on this, just your brain seems to have joined the non-cooperation movement, right? And you don't know what to do. So first thing is ask yourself, what is your response? What is it that you're feeling? See, a lot of times it's very important for us to get in touch with the feeling that we have at that point, right? Now, there could be a couple of feelings. And I have a couple of questions for you, okay? And to basically show you how it feels, okay? So the first feeling is, I have no clue, right? Feeling number one. Feeling number two, I'm down to the last two, but I'm confused. Feeling number three, I picked an answer choice, but I'm not very comfortable if the answer is right. What do I do? Okay. Any given point, these are the three feelings you're going to have, right? Yeah, I got the answer, but somehow I don't know. I just feel, I'm kind of feeling that I didn't understand this question really. Maybe I'm rushing into it. Should I go back, read the question again? Should I, save more, spend more time? Should I just mark, move on, right? So, first thing that I would like to ask you is, when you are stuck on any question, okay, ask yourself, are you really stuck or are you taking more time? See, some questions on the GMAT, and there are some very devious questions, I can tell you. I've seen a few myself where I cannot solve it in less than 2.5 minutes, okay? I'm saying that with absolute humility. I cannot solve it. I'm not that big a genius that any question I can solve in 30 seconds. Some questions take me 2.5 minutes. Yeah, it takes me time. But when I'm solving, I know that each as time is passing, I'm making progress. I'm getting to the right answer choice. They are asking me to add A, B, and C. I got the value of A. I got the value of B. I need 20 more seconds to add both of them and tell you the value of C. In such cases, I don't think you're really stuck. You're taking more time. That's why in the class also I tell this, try to differentiate between a tough question and a tedious question. What is a tough question? A tough question is a question that you really, kind of get down to solving, but you realize is, you're just, yeah. So it's a tough question. It's a question that, you actually are stuck. You do not know. In that, what happens, the feeling that you get is it's like a tape stuck. You keep going back, you keep reading the same thing, but no matter how many times you're reading it, the answer option or the stimulus, your brain is not able to process it. Okay? That is a tough question. But a question where there are so many steps involved that you have to take time, you have to go through it, you are going through the motions. These are tedious questions. Those are questions which are time consuming, correct? So first of all, differentiate between time-consuming questions and tough questions, okay? When you're stuck, it's a tough question. When you're taking more time, it's not a tough question. It's just a question that is taking more time, right? The other thing that I see a lot of people doing is somewhere when they are stuck, they get this weird thing, arey, you know what, forget it, yaar. Let me just scratch out. Let me start afresh. Bad strategy, okay? When you are stuck, when you are not able to figure out what it is, starting all over again, take my word for it, will hurt you more than helping you, okay? So if you feel at some point all of this did not make sense, you feel stuck in your head, mark and move on. All of you clear on this? So what will you do? First, ask yourself, am I stuck or am I making progress? Okay, that's the first thing you're going to ask yourself. If you are making progress, very good. Congratulations. Take 30 more seconds, it's okay. You are probably a little slower, but please go ahead and do that. But if you're stuck, that means it's a tough question. Golden rule, do not scratch out, do not start over all over again. Now ask yourself, why are you stuck? Is it stuck because you have no clue? Is it stuck because you are in the last two answer options, you are confused? Or are you stuck because you picked an answer, but you're really not sure whether you understood that question completely? Correct? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically give you, okay, the same thing, okay, where I will try to, let me just go to, yeah. So let me pick this question. Let me try to get to, okay. What I want you to do is take a quick minute, look at this question, okay. I'm not going to be explaining grammar and all that. I don't think at this point, that's really the intent of our thing. Okay. Okay. So just take some time, look at it. Okay. Now, let's say you have solved this question. Okay. I'm not going to get into the, the actual grammar behind it, but let me just look at it. So it says the gray falcon, an Arctic bird of prey, has survived a close brush with extinction, semicolon. Its numbers are now 5 times greater than when the use of DDT was sharply restricted in the early 1970s. Okay? Now what I do is I just look at it. It says that it is the name of the bird is the gray falcon, correct? One second. There is a, okay. So if I were to look at this, gray falcon, it's a singular, correct? If it's a singular, now look at what answer option C says. It says their number, it says they, it says they, it says they, correct? Now, the entire thing is talking about singular, okay? But this answer option is talking about plural. So what do? I eliminate C, I eliminate D, I eliminate E. So what did I do? I used pronoun to basically eliminate C, D, E. Now I'm left with answer option A and B. Now look at it. The difference between answer option A and B is greater and more. Now, what of the 3 scenarios do you think you will face? I give you 3 scenarios, right? What of the 3 scenarios do you think you will face? You can go ahead, type in the chat window. Yes. Confused in the last two, correct? So here is the point. Spending more time will not help you. What happens on the GMAT? No, same thing. See, this is again, I'm going back to the guessing strategy, correct? Now, there is no way I can really solve this question. What happens? Students, they get into this thing. You've seen the Mad Angles chips ad, right? There is this triangle. The boss, he's chewing his tie and he says, or gumao. And, the same chips, they are, just changing the angle. But that's what is going to happen because you do not have that information. What do? I have no option at this point but to guess. You have to get comfortable guessing. Because if I don't know the difference between greater and more, there is no way I'll be able to solve this question. And since you are curious, let me tell you, the answer is not B. The answer is A for alpha. Okay. The difference between A and B is A talks about greater, okay, which is what is required, because when we talk about numbers, okay, so anything that says number or indicates a number, we will use the word greater. For example, I will say that Amit has more shoes than me, correct? But I would say the number of, or the population of Pakistan or population of India is greater than the population of Pakistan. So whenever we talk about anything that says the number of people in the classroom is greater than the number of people outside, correct? So when we say the number, we will use greater. Now, if I did not know this, there is no way in hell I would have been able to solve this. So learn. Stuck between last two, go ahead, make a guess, move on, okay? Let's take one more example, okay? Take the next one. I'm going to give you 2 minutes, which is more than what you require because you have 109 seconds on the GMAT, but still 2 minutes. All right, stop wherever you are. 2 minutes over. Tell me how many of you were even close to the right answer or even close to the answer. Be honest. How many of you have an answer? I got one answer, C. Okay. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. You know what? Okay. You know what? Actually, my point is not so much about what the right answer is. Okay. But this is one of those questions where, though you understood it, how many of you felt that you probably were kind of, it just looks like you look at the answer choices and it just looks very vague. How many of you, so what do you think? Do you think you probably were in the category where you really did not have a clue? Did you feel that way? Like you read it, the stimulus looks very easy, correct? The stimulus looks very easy. I can imagine. यार मेरे साथ भी life में ऐसा कभी होता है. I judge others by different moral standards. But what happens when you get into the answer choices? Your brain goes on a toss, and you just keep reading the answer options, correct? And you don't know what to do. And at some point, what happens? You say, "Hey, you know what? Abhi, let's go and pick this answer choice," and we mark something, correct? So this is an example of what I wanted to give as an example of when you have no clue, right? So really, I'll just very quickly explain the logic behind it. Basically, the idea is different people have different moral standards, right? So look at the conclusion. It says, this shows that most people apply weaker moral standards to themselves than to others. This is my conclusion. What am I basing this conclusion on? I'm basing this on the fact that the volunteers essentially, gave a different, so volunteers who got to select chose easier tasks. Volunteers who did not get to select felt it was unfair to give them easier tasks, right? So there is a correspondence between the volunteers selecting things and what is considered as moral standards, correct? The right answer choice is A. A says at least some volunteers who said they had acted fairly in choosing the easy task would have said that it was unfair for someone else to do so. When will I say this? When I have weaker moral standards to themselves than to others, correct? Because when it is my chance, I'm picking easy tasks. But if I'm being given tougher tasks, I'm saying it's unfair. So we have different standards, correct? So that's why the answer is A. But again, I'm not getting into solving this, right? The idea is just to make you feel the three emotions that I told you, okay? Now let's get to the third one. Third one is one of my personal favorite questions, okay? And this is a slightly tougher question. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. You can start now. 3 minutes, okay?
It's 9 o'clock.
All right, 3 minutes over. So I see quite a few answer choices. Why don't you just go ahead and type into the chat window what do you think is the answer? Whatever you think is the answer, just go ahead and type it. D, C, E, A, okay. D, acha, very good. D, good. Excellent. Very good. All of you very now because most people are getting D, so when you are like a little confused, you want to go with the majority, right? Okay. You know, I told you it's my favorite question. There is a reason. Okay, of all the hundreds of questions that I've seen, thousands perhaps in CR, there is a good reason why this is one of my favorite questions. I'll just explain this to you, then you'll understand why it is my favorite question. Okay? But first, tell me what is the feeling that you're getting now? What is the feeling you're getting? This is not a question jahan pe you have no clue. Do you agree? This is not that level, correct? You are able to figure out. Looks like a maths question, right? Secondly, this doesn't seem to a question where you are stuck between the last two. You pretty much got some answer, and that answer seems to be right. But somewhere deep down, are all of you feeling like, "Hey, I got the answer, but somehow I feel I'm not very sure." How many of you have that feeling? Go ahead and type in the chat window. Correct? So you get, see, I'm trying to expose you to all the three different feelings, which is why I gave you the first question where you are between the last two. Second question where you are kind of clueless. Third question, you had a sense, you picked an answer choice, but you don't know whether it's right or wrong. So let's take a look at how I would go about solving this. So let's understand this. Heavy is more than 2 inches, okay? Moderate, okay, is more than 1, okay, but no more than 2. So no more than 2 means equal to less than 2, all right? Then you have light, which is greater than 0, okay, but no more than 1. So it says at least a trace, so it's greater than 0, okay, but no more than 1. No more than 1 means equal to or less than 1. And then no rainfall, obviously, it means 0. Okay? Now let me start off. Answer option A, the number of days with heavy rainfall was lower in 1990 than 1910. Okay, let me just assume how many of you went ahead and eliminated answer option A? Like you just looked at it and you just thought, "Arey, it seems to be the wrong answer option." No? Did you eliminate it? Yeah, all of you? Okay. So most of you, those who chose A obviously didn't do it, but many of you did that, right? Okay. Now let me look at answer options B. The number of days with some rainfall, but no more than 2 inches was the same in 1990 as in 1910. Let me understand. Number of days with some rainfall, but no more than 2 inches. Matlab, moderate and light. Okay, was same in 1990 as 1910. Wait a second, what does this say? There were fewer days with light rainfall than in 1910 and fewer days with moderate rainfall in 1990 than in 1910. Correct? By that token, B for Bravo cannot be the answer. By that token, just read this. The number of days with some rainfall, but no more than 2 inches. Some days with some rainfall, which means moderate and light, was higher. Answer option B is saying same. Answer option C is saying it was higher. But we know from the stimulus it was lower. So C also cannot be the answer. Correct? D. The total number of inches of rain that fell on days with moderate rainfall in 1990 was more than twice what it had been in 1910. Let me understand. The total number of inches of rain, okay, with moderate rainfall was more than twice than what it had been in 1910. Let me understand whether it's possible, okay. We know that there were fewer days in 1990 with moderate rainfall than in 1910. Can it be twice? Just look at this. Can it be twice? Even if in 1910, the rainfall had been, 1.0001 inch. What you're telling me in answer option D is the total number of inches was twice. How is it possible? Because twice means it would no longer be moderate, it will become heavy rainfall, no? Correct? So answer option D is mathematically not possible. E says average amount of rainfall per month was lower in 1990 than in 1910. Wait a second. Total rainfall in 1990, look at the answer option, right? Look at the last. In 1990, the total rainfall was 20% higher in 1910. So average amount of rainfall, how can it be lower? Monthly average cannot be lower and annual number cannot be higher, right? Answer option E also goes off. What does that leave you with? Answer option A. Correct? Now, this is an example of when you in your mind are stuck between two answer choices, but in reality, the answer option is completely different. Correct? So that's pretty much what I wanted to kind of show you, that, why guessing is important. Correct? Why it is important for you to kind of go through it. I have a couple of points. I just wanted to go through it for people who are looking at specifically SE, CR, RC. So let me start off with SE. If you're stuck in SE, here is a way to guess. Take your eyes off the rule. Many times what happens, we just look at one rule. Like if I have figured out that there is a problem in parallelism in answer option B and C, I will try finding only parallelism problems. Wait a second. You're getting stuck. No, stop. Don't look at parallelism. Take something else. Maybe there is a comparison error. Maybe there is a subject verb error. Maybe there is an idiom error. Whatever the other error is, focus on that. Okay. So that's one thing that can help you from getting stuck in sentence correction. Second thing in sentence correction is I quickly eliminate 3 answer choices. Remember, when I'm going through the 5 answer choices, I'm never going to select my right answer choice. There is no option for me to select. I have only 2 options. Either keep or reject. That's all. Keep, reject, keep, reject. By the time I'm done, hopefully I have 2, things that I've kept. Okay. If I've kept those 2 things, I will be able to now spend my time trying to figure out between the last 2. Right. So it's very important that you eliminate at least 3 so that you can zero in on the last 2. Look at all the questions that you have solved. You'll realize that your brain works better when you're trying to look at the differences between 2 answer options. Correct? It's a lot easier for your brain to grapple that. And as I said, if all things fail, is it okay to make a blind guess on the GMAT? I showed you, right? Greater and more. That is the only difference. And there is really nothing much you can do. Use the JMD approach that I taught you. Okay. Just take a deep breath. Just go ahead, mark an answer, move on. People ask, what are the kind of questions that I can guess? So here is a question that I can say that you can possibly, so if you are trying to guess to save time, I told you, right? 5 tests, 15 minutes each. You have to solve 8 questions in verbal. Let us say at some point, you're at -2 or -3. Or let's say worst case scenario, you're at -5. What are the kind of questions you can guess? In sentence correction, you can guess questions where the entire sentence is underlined. All the answer options change the entire sentence structure. If you have solved enough GMAT questions, you know the kind of questions I'm talking about. Those would be the best questions for you to guess. CR. First of all, the problem that a lot of people commit on CR is they read the stimulus very fast. Okay, they just go through it so fast, right, that they just don't take time to process it. CR stimulus is like quant. In quant, it says, no, John goes at 5 kilometers per hour, Jane goes at 8 kilometers per hour, Jane reaches 2 minutes before John. When you read this, you don't read it in one shot. You say, okay, John, 5 kilometers per hour. Okay. Jane, 8 kilometers per hour. Okay. Difference is 3 kilometers per hour. Okay. That means Jane should have reached faster. Let's see this. Jane reached 2 minutes earlier. Okay. So because of this, Jane reached. So you have to go slowly, right? In reading comprehension, we talk about skimming. You cannot do skimming in CR. CR, understanding the stimulus is the most important thing. In fact, here is a quick tip. Okay. In fact, the best questions to guess, if after reading the stimulus, you're not gotten a good sense, you're confused, probably you have to guess early. I rather guess at the end of 30 seconds rather than guess at the end of 2.5 minutes. Guessing at the end of 30 seconds, I am taking the test in my control. If I guess at the end of 2.5 minutes, it is not called guessing, it's called giving up. Correct? Not only have I wasted 2 minutes extra, but I've also probably got the question wrong. Right? So if you have not understood the stimulus, please go ahead and guess. Okay? And you can make it a blind guess. Okay? You don't even need to have an educated guess. But I'm going to eliminate the most obvious wrong answer choice. Like I told you in the case of SC, keep, reject. These are the only two options I have. Okay. Once I've done that, and this is specifically for CR, especially on tougher questions, okay, what you'll realize is GMAT has this very, kind of weird way by which in the last two answer choices, the difference can be just a few words, okay? So you have to be very careful leading the last two answer choices, for which it's important that you eliminate the most obviously wrong ones. One more thing on CR, if you have practiced enough questions, you know what I'm talking about. How many of you have felt that you went ahead and looked at this word not mentioned anywhere in the stimulus, went ahead and got it, like you just eliminated it, correct? And then you look at the answer and the answer says C. C was the first answer option that you eliminated, correct? And the beauty of CR is such that the more you think about the wrong answer option, the more correct it starts looking. Have all of you faced that, right? So what happens then is we end up using this out of scope principle. It's taught, but please be very careful using it. Okay. So use out of scope very carefully, because the last thing that you want is you eliminate the right answer choice. And I'm pretty sure many of you have done that, correct? So just go ahead and write in the chat window. Have you done that? You eliminated the right answer choice. Then what happens? You're left with the wrong answer choice. Then what happens? We start justifying why the right answer choice is right. And the more I think about it, the more my brain is trying to justify that, yeah, this is perhaps the right answer, correct? So very important that you kind of make sure that you don't eliminate the wrong answer choice. Finally, reading comprehension. First rule, you cannot save time reading comprehension by going fast in the questions. You have to save time in reading comprehension by skimming the passage quickly. Okay, so those of you who have attended Crack Verbal, either the online or the classroom program, know what I'm talking about. The first time that you read the passage, when you don't know what to look for, when you're reading it just as an overview, it is called skimming. When you get to the questions and you get back to the passage to check whatever you have read, whether it's right, to find the answers, that is called scanning. Spend more time scanning. Spend more time answering questions, more time reading the answer options, more time trying to eliminate and select, rather than spending a lot of time up front reading the whole passage, trying to understand everything before you get to the questions. Okay, that's really the biggest way you can save time on reading comprehension. Then the other thing about RC is once you get down to the answer options, trust me, reading comprehension, the answer options, and I have seen really tough questions, okay? And these are questions where the more you read, the more confusing it gets. At that point, you have to, GMAT will have just one word that will make the right answer option wrong. So you'll have to get into that one word. There will be one word which is primary. The moment you say primary, not mentioned in the passage, that answer option is wrong, correct? So it's very important that you get into that finesse by eliminating this. And among all answer options, if you're stuck between the last two, you don't know what to do, go ahead, pick the answer option that has the fewest, it's not options, the fewest assumptions. Okay, so you need to pick the answer option that has the fewest assumption. What is the question to guess? Well, which of the following predictive statements the author would agree with? All of you have seen that, right? These kind of questions. where it will be 5 answer options. You have to read all the 5 answer options and you will have to figure out which one is right. These are the kind of questions that you probably are better off guessing. Again, don't get the whole passage, don't guess the whole passage, guess only these kind of questions. All right. So I hope that pretty much is kind of this. So I just wanted to check with you in case you have not gotten our GMAT online course. For those attending today's webinar, those who have been with us till the end, you can use this coupon code CRACKGMAT50. And just for today, we'll be taking off this coupon code tomorrow. You get our comprehensive course at a $50 off, right? So that's about 3,500 rupees off. But this coupon code can be used just today. So make sure that you take that. Meanwhile, let me just go through the questions. Let's see if there are any questions. Yeah. So the MBA Summit, Ria, I assume you're in Mumbai. The MBA Summit would be in the evening, somewhere around 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the evening. All right. So thanks a lot. I'm sorry I took a little bit more time today. We went about 15 minutes overboard, but I really hope that today's session was useful. Because as I told you at the start of it, whatever I'm telling you today, these are all things that you will not find in a book. People who have been studying for the GMAT long enough, perhaps they will be able to better appreciate it. So if you are early on, make sure that you go back to this video when you're probably a week, 10 days before your test date. Relook this video. I'm pretty sure you will be able to get to know more. For the MBA Summit, I just wanted to let you know that was a sneak preview. Okay, nobody really knows about it. We have not sent an email. We are still in the process. So I just wanted to, get you a little excited about it. So it's going to be a great event. I'm going to be hosting it. I'm going to come to Mumbai, Delhi, and obviously in Bangalore. So I hope to see you there. You will be getting an email. Please make sure you check your email. All right. Thanks a lot. Have a very good night. And I hope to see you later. Very good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.